If you're running a $5 million or more service-based business and you haven't considered government contracts before, or maybe you have and you haven't taken the leap into it, I already know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking that it's for startups, it's for minority owned businesses, it's only for small businesses, or maybe it's for really big businesses that are doing like 100 million or $1 billion in revenue. And you're thinking, I don't want to deal with the paperwork. I don't want to deal with this, that, and the other. Well, here in this video, I'm going to share with you why you think that and how to fix it, how to actually go from where you are right now to winning government contracts. My name is Melinda Cologne. If you don't know who I am, I'm a government contracting expert. I'm a business growth consultant. I don't just talk about government contracts. I really help my clients win them and get results. Our win rate is 74%. It has been consistent at that rate, in addition to our results for our clients of $5.7 billion since 2020. And the goal here is not to just like flex these stats and tell you this is like possible. There is actual work to get this done. But is it worth it? I believe for the right businesses, it is. So the first thing is, where do we get those ideas? Why do many people think it's for small businesses, certified businesses? You have to be either a woman, a man that's a veteran, or black, or pink, purple, or whatever, in order to get a government contract. In fact, if you even look up the top 5 organizations in your industry, there is at least one that is winning government contracts. Because when it comes to service-based businesses, there's a lever in terms of when you finally graduate from just not being dependent on referrals to getting your own leads, building your book of business, doing real business development, having a sales pipeline that has real numbers and it doesn't get skewed by the referrals you get. And this is truth. This is what other businesses at your level are experiencing. Those that are at 5, that are at 7, those are at 10 million, and they want to go beyond. I've had several clients of mine tell me, Melinda, this is transformational stuff. But I wouldn't have known that because all I hear is that there's a lot of paperwork, red tape, bureaucracy, etc. And I say, yeah, there is paperwork. But let me tell you, what good business doesn't have paperwork? Even if you running your business, would you like to have everybody who, comes off the street leave money at you, even though they're going to be a terrible client, even though they may not actually understand what you do and want you to customize the entire experience for them? And then after you customize it all, then they actually try to have you cut your price because they don't want to pay it. Am I talking to someone? Like, this is what's happening, and this is what happens. And you finally figured out, you know what? I need to establish some boundaries. I need to put out there in the marketplace that I only work with this type of client because the rest of they're not the right fit. And it's okay to have those boundaries. In fact, I believe that boundaries are the access point to freedom in business. And if you don't have those boundaries, you're going to be the bottleneck. You're going to be the go-to person for everything. You're going to be the problem solver for every person on your team. You're going to be the person that your clients are desperately asking for, and you just can't deliver yourself for every single client and expect to scale. That's not where you are anymore. But where you are is systems and processes and structure and leveraging AI to get there. And so you already have something working. It's not about trying to change what works. It's just about leveraging what is already working in another space, because it's kind of like standing in front of traffic, like you're going to get hit. Well, the good news is that when you stand in front of the traffic, in private or public sector, you means that those opportunities are going to find you in addition to you finding them way easier than if you were just blending in with everyone else. I think about the top 1%. I did some research and I looked at the top 1% of all time in American history. And it was really interesting that every single owner of those companies, the founders, the acquirers of those companies, all leverage government contracts. In fact, one of the most notable names today, as the time of this recording, is Elon Musk. He wins government contracts all the time. What about Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos? Or there are so many others that still do that today. Rockefeller, Ford. I mean, these are also people that leverage government contracts to grow and scale their business. Maybe it feels overwhelming. You've got a lot on your plate. But here's the thing: when you install a system that requires you to build structure, that's why there are forms. That's why there's paperwork. That's why there's gatekeeping, because just like an opt-in funnel, you got to get the name and email. You got to make sure that they're serious. It's not just someone who's excited about the dollar value and not excited about a long-term strategic partnership with that buyer. This is an opportunity for you to stabilize your business, to build partnerships and relationships with community leaders, to be a community leader yourself, and to really step out and give yourself freedom from doing all the things in your business. Imagine the types of people that you could hire, really senior expert people that can teach the rest of your teams how to do things so that you can go even faster and further. You can't do that as quickly and as desirably on the private sector. It takes time. It's incremental growth. But with government contracting, it's explosive growth. It helps you quantum leap into the next bracket. One of our clients came to us and she was just do private sector for her construction company. And then we helped her layer in government contracts. And in just 90 days, she won two separate contracts, two separate agencies, two separate opportunities. And it totaled more than her annual revenue the year before. Now, how did that happen? How is that possible? Well, it's actually really simple. It's leveraging past performance. She has been in business for 15 years and she already knew, or the business already knew how to deliver work. So it wasn't like she was changing anything about her business. She was just stepping into a new market that didn't know who she was yet. And as soon as they did know who she was, those opportunities were becoming easier and easier for her to position and win. Now, it wasn't 100%. It still isn't 100% till today. There's no such thing, right? Like, guarantee it's going to rain. I don't know about you, but I live in Florida. The meteorologist is wrong 99.9% of the time, but they still pay him a six-figure salary. There is no guarantee in life, but there is an opportunity for you to plan out for the next 6, 8, 12 months ahead. You see, the thing about government contracts that private sector doesn't offer you is the ability to see opportunities that will be government contracts in the future. Okay, so let me break that down because it might have rolled right over your head. You might have not heard that before. There is an opportunity for you to actually see contracts before they're ever advertised. They're called opportunities. They're called line items on a budget. They're called specific problems that they're looking to solve in that fiscal year. Some agencies, and mostly on the SLED side, will have 2 to 5 years in adopted budget. So that adopted budget will cover 2 to 5 years, depending on their initiatives. More of the more in progress or in developing communities will have this type of budget because they're earmarking what they're going to need in the near future, usually tied to commercial development or population increase, etc. Why is this important? Well, the reason why it's important that you know that these opportunities exist before you go to sam.gov or your local agency's website to go ahead and submit a bid is because it actually changes how you position to win. I was talking to a client of mine yesterday and he came across an opportunity for the Department of Labor, and he's in IT. And he was thinking like, this is great. I have an IT offer specifically in AI services. And he started skimming through. Well, after he did a good review, he realized that it wasn't the right fit. And I was so grateful that we had the conversation of doing his due diligence, reading the RFP, paying attention to some of the markers, and actually knowing what you sell beforehand so that he didn't have to waste his time putting together a bid that he was more likely not going to win. Instead, he uses it as data. And now he can go back to the DOL budget and see other opportunities that are going to be rolling out in the next couple of months, the next quarter. And this gives him more clarity, but also helps him set up for those opportunities ahead of time so that he's not just in a 2-week or 3-week window trying to respond in addition to running a successful business. You want to have time so that you can build partnership relationships, so that you know how to staff your company. What offers have you delivered before? Maybe you need to go back to a couple of clients and get some reference letters. I mean, this gives you so much time in advance before it becomes a contract, because once it's advertised, everyone sees it. Well, let's take it a step further. You see, my client yesterday, one of the things that we talked about is looking at the budget and proactively having conversations with agency buyers. And the reason why this is so powerful is because the agency buyer typically is not an expert of the thing that you sell. What this does is it helps you showcase authority. The first thing that happens in the buying cycle for government contracting is that people think, I'll see what they need. Well, you already know what they need if you're an expert in your marketplace, if you've delivered the services to a client. And even you can actually, if you're a former corporate employee and this is what you do now in your business, you can leverage that past performance. There is a way, it's a specific strategy to do it properly and ethically. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is an expert and lowering mitigation, lowering that risk, mitigating the risk of delivering the services so that they can get the outcome that they desire. They don't want to deal with headaches. They don't want to deal with pressure and challenges. They want to deal with companies that actually know what they're doing. One of the reasons why I see a lot of startups and small businesses out in the marketplace not succeeding is because they really don't have a clear indication of what they're selling. And they're just kind of putting a bid for anything. Let me be the lowest. Let me be the cheapest. Well, then how do you expect to deliver excellence if you're the cheapest? How do you provide that white glove experience to a client that deserves it? You can't, because you're the cheapest. You're just looking for a quick conversion, and that is not good business. What is good business is charging and including the margin in there. Do you really think that agencies want you to be the cheapest and not make money? No. They want you to be reasonable and have a budget and a specific margin so that you can make money and make sure that you're having profit in your business. That way, the next time there's an opportunity, you can actually bid on it because you still have a business. Those that think that they can just run into the government contracting without any business development, no relationships, no understanding of what exactly the scope of work or the services they're asking for, and expect to get results, you're just they're wishful thinking, and it's not real. What is real is professionalism, integrity, being ethical, and being intelligent about what you're putting out about your business. So here, let me give you the how of how you can actually go out and win government contracts. Are you ready? Okay. I call this the GovCon sales strategy. And I discovered it when I was working in corporate America, where this was my job, to do procurement, to help win multi-million and billion-dollar contracts for employers so that they can keep an entire department of engineers employed. And then I started my own company where I help small businesses win government contracts so that they can add zeros to their revenue. There's a 5-step process, and it starts with prepare. Prepare with the end in mind. What exactly are you selling? And what's your business plan? I mean, you want to make sure that you have it target. You're a visionary. You want to know exactly how you're going to be growing your business and stay focused on that. Not only is it going to help accelerate things and help you iterate as you go, but it's going to give a lot more comfort to your team because they're going to be smarter about what they're doing every single day. The second step is to target. Target buyers that are buying what you sell. I know that sounds kind of silly and easy, but oftentimes a lot of contractors go out there, they look at contracts, and then they bid on just about anything. And this is not the best idea because there's intel that you may not be privy to when you see the opportunity advertised. So, how do you get more information? How do you know more about the thing that you're trying to win? Well, this is really kind of simple, but it's the one thing that most business owners will never do. And it's actually to build relationship with the buyer, to educate them ahead of time, to review what they have bought in the past, and to understand what are their pain points and challenges. I recently had an interview with one of the buyers, a procurement buyer, who shared with me sometimes we leave things out not because we're intentionally trying to leave it out, but because we don't think it's important. And we learn talking through experts that it is important. And that's the point. Because they're not the expert, they don't know what's important. And when you have conversations with them beforehand, you can get intel about things that could shift whether or not you're going to win this contract or you're not going to win this contract. Now, step number 3 is to strategize. This is really taking the intel into your organization and deciding how you're going to pursue, or if you're going to pursue at all. Timing, specific schedule, and also resources can impact whether or not there's a go decision when the opportunity is advertised. Maybe it's January and you're looking at the opportunity in your sales pipeline and you think that you're going to go after it when it comes out in March. Well, in fact, it rolls out in March, but there's a lot of change that has occurred in your business. You hired new people, you're rolling out a new offer, or the client that you're serving right now just needs more dedication. Well, is it going to make sense for you to bid on that contract? When are you actually going to start doing the work in the delivery? And these are all questions that you have to ask yourself before you put in a bid. Also, the terms, like how are you going to get paid? And what is the structure of the agreement? All things you can know ahead of submitting a bid. Strategize is also about identifying whether or not you're going to be a prime, a subcontractor, or positioned in a different way for winning the contract. So if you might see something and you might say to yourself, well, gosh, I would love to do a specific scope of work in the contract, but we're really not strong in this other area. And gives you an opportunity to build partnerships before the bid even is advertised, so that when it is advertised, you already have your team already set up. You've identified someone who's comparable and strong in the areas to cover that you can't. And now you have a fighting chance. So this is really important. Now, one thing that I want to stress is the middleman strategy. You may have heard about it and thought to yourself, I might want to do that. Well, here's the thing. You're already an established 5 million plus business owner who's running a service-based business with success. Doing a middleman strategy requires differentiation that's different than how you're differentiating your business right now. You have to make sure that it makes sense to include you as a contractor on a contract that you may or may not actually have deliverables for. So if it doesn't make sense for you to add an entirely different department or segment of your organization where you're bidding on opportunities utilizing the middleman strategy, I would stay away from that. It actually can hurt you in the long run when you're building long-term relationships with procurement officers. Step number 4 is to submit. Yeah, this is actually writing the proposal, the price, and putting everything together. And since you already have success, you already have 90% of the work already done. The only challenge that you're experiencing right now in terms of submitting a bid is translating it. See, you have the past performance or you have experience delivering on those services. You have the team that's delivering on those services. Potentially, you have a lot of information about your company. But how do you stand out? Because if you're only focused on price, well, you might win the bid, but you're going to lose the opportunity to actually build a differentiation. And you might lose out on actually having a healthy margin. See, when it comes to submitting a proposal and a price, they're looking for best value. If it's just a price, then they're just looking for price, and you should stay controlled and focused on excellence, meaning that you're not going to go lower just to go lower. You're going to be strategic about your pricing. See, your pricing is just not a number, it actually is a message. You're saying something about your numbers. You're saying that you're educated. You're saying that you've had experience, and you're saying that you know how to deliver. I was talking to another friend of mine who's a procurement manager, and he shared with me, if I get a bid that's way under, I have to accept it. However, I already know that they're going to have challenges delivering on that work, and that I should hold on to the other list of submittals in case they don't deliver. Because that's one of the biggest headaches that we have, is actually working with a company that can't deliver. So I don't want you to have that experience. I want you to be really thoughtful. And in fact, you probably have more in your arsenal than you think. You have a lot of experience previously before starting your business, and the clients that you currently have, along with the team members that you work with and the relationships that you have with the industry. So you've probably got more than you think you have. And when you put all of that together, wow, that's a really powerful differentiator that no one else can say that they have. Now, once you've submitted, you're going to go to step 5, which is track. See, track is not just tracking the opportunity in your CRM system to make sure that, you win the contract. Track is all about intel. You're going to track the details of the responses and the results of the contract, who won and who didn't. And if you're on the winning side, you definitely want to see who your competitors are in the marketplace. And the same thing for when you lose. Now, the other thing is to actually ask for a debrief. On the federal side, it's more common not to get a debrief. It's very challenging to get one. However, on the state, local, and education side, or SLED, airports, libraries, healthcare systems, school districts, colleges, they love giving feedback because, especially when you use this language, you want to be a strategic long-term partner. They want to assist you with that. One of the things that is a huge benefit with what's going on right now in the marketplace on the private side is that there's a huge opportunity to get into government contracts. Imagine the largest generation that has ever existed in American history is in the process of retiring, and they really made small businesses small businesses. Most of our data is based off businesses in this era, and they're transitioning out of their business. They're either selling it or they are closing their doors. Now, what happens with all of those clients that need those services? I really thought about it, and I thought, well, it's a good thing that we're having AI come through. But the second, which is the more powerful opportunity that you have right now, is government contracts. There's more opportunity than not available right now for those services, because the demand doesn't go away, even though the person that's still providing the solution does. So this is a great opportunity for you to take action and really take advantage of the transition that we're having right now. You have AI, you have the silver tsunami, which is the greatest wealth transfer in American history, and they're happening simultaneously. Everything happens for a reason, and I believe it's setting you up for success. But those are the 5 steps, and once you walk through those steps and you apply every step to your business, it will give you clarity, it will give you focus, and it will give you speed, as long as you're open to iterating and improving the process. Now, when you layer in private sector work, now you stay ahead of everyone else and potentially can transform your business forever. I mean, just imagine. What would it be like for your business, your service-based business, to go from 5 to 10 million this year, or 10 to 50 million next year? It's totally possible. Here's what I want you to know right now. If you are running an established service-based business and you are serious about adding government contracting as a predictable revenue stream, apply for a strategy call with me. The link is right down below this video, and I do a limited number of these each week because I only work with businesses I know I can help. Now, if that's you, apply now, and I look forward to talking with you.